Good evening. This is Ian from Fantastic Dimensions. This is a video response to Robert Ogre, who tagged me in the 5 RPG facts videos that are going around right now. It's kind of funny because I just tagged him last night in another similar tag video. So yeah, I wasn't going to let Robert down. So here we go. So this is about 5 RPG facts. Probably, hopefully, things that you don't know about me. Some people probably do. I couldn't think of anything that nobody knows. But yeah, fact number 1. I run a lot of games. I've run quite a few one-shots in the one-shot group, and I run lots of campaigns, mini-series to even full-on long-term campaigns. So I don't do a lot of prep. In fact, I do probably a lot less prep than I probably should. I don't know. It works for me anyway, but I think it'd be a really big surprise to a lot of people to find out how little prep I do. Generally, especially with a one-shot, but even my campaign sessions lately, I've been doing very episodic style, so I kind of prepare them very similar to one-shots anyway. I might pick out a couple of encounters that I'd like to see happen. I might maybe pick out a location or two or something like that, just basic ideas. I don't draw them out. I don't really write things out too much. I don't generally write down names of NPCs or anything of that sort. And then when the session starts, I just roll with it and I feed off of my players based on how they react to the world around them, what they say, what they do. That's just kind of the way I go about it. It's maybe a little bit lazy, as a dungeon master or games master. But I'm a pretty busy person, and I probably bite off more than I can chew with the amount of games and the amount of campaigns that I run anyway. So yeah, I'm a very minimal prep, like extreme minimal prep. I usually fit all of my notes for any particular game session, campaign session, anything on a page at most, and a lot of times it's even less than that. I could probably write most of my prep down on a Post-it note. But fact number 2. And I'm saying this because this is something a lot of people have been asking me about. I've been invited to a lot of games. A couple of people asked me about running one. I'm really not at all interested in any Star Wars RPGs, period. I know Star Wars is extremely popular, extremely successful, and there's a reason for that. I'm not saying I'm not saying Star Wars sucks, but what I am saying is it doesn't really interest me. I'll watch the movies. I'll watch the new movie when it comes out. My brother is a huge fan of Star Wars, and a lot of other friends I have are huge fans of Star Wars. And Star Wars, I won't say, hasn't influenced me. I've definitely used a lot of influence from Star Wars in my space opera campaign that I'm running right now. I think there's cool things in it, but yeah, as far as like learning to play and running or playing in a Star Wars tabletop RPG, and I know there's several out there. I don't even know what they all are. I know there's like a Age of Rebellion, Saga Edition, Edge of the Empire, all these different things that I see posted around the group. But yeah, you're never going to really see me playing in one of those, I don't think. And I definitely won't be running any of them. It's just not my thing. I don't really consider Star Wars science fiction. I guess it is science fiction, and I'm just being a bit of a snob when I say that. I think of it as much more like space fantasy. I don't even really know why I do that. I'm probably just being, a prick. I think Star Wars, if you put it anyway up against other science fiction, all the different science fiction shows and movies and stuff that I watch, Star Wars is kind of at the bottom of the list for me. I much prefer Star Trek, Firefly, Mass Effect, Battlestar Galactica, all of those things, way, way better than Star Wars in my personal opinion. But so I'll move on. I'll stop hating on Star Wars now. You can feel free to send me little hateful comments down below. Fact number 3, I've never played anything in the Palladium or GURPS systems, which, when I was actually writing this down, I thought that was even a little bit surprising to me because, these are heavy hitters, I suppose, in the RPG community as far as systems that have a lot of different books, a lot of different styles and genres and stuff within them. And I've never played either one. I don't know. I'm not necessarily adverse to it. I've heard things about Palladium anyway that kind of turned me off from what I understand, it's a really complex and number crunchy system, which isn't my bag usually, but I don't know. The right GM, I suppose. I might give it a shot. Maybe if Robert Ogre ran something cool in Palladium system or something, I might check it out. GURPS, again, I don't know, actually, until I joined the Tabletop RPG one-shot group, I just never really knew anybody who played GURPS. It wasn't very big where I grew up amongst my gaming friends anyway. So I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't say anything about GURPS because I don't know anything about it. So fact number 4, and this is interesting because I've been playing role-playing games for a long time. I played my first session of Dungeons and Dragons when I was a toddler, practically. Yeah, I guess I would have been a toddler, really. I was 4 years old. It was 1981. My dad ran a session for me because I was begging him to, because I'd watched him play with his friends and I really wanted to. I wanted to get in on it, you know. So it was 1981, the first time I ever played. 1985 was when I started running games for my little brother. That's when I kind of really started playing games because I had a book and I wanted to play it. It was an AD&D player's handbook. I wanted to run the game. I wanted to play it. Didn't have anybody to play with. None of my 8-year-old friends wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons. So, yeah, so my little brother, who was 4, the same age as I was when I started, he was up for anything. So we took little toy figures and we played Dungeons and Dragons. But while I could say I've been playing role-playing games for 30 years, I actually took a long hiatus from role-playing games, tabletop role-playing games anyway. I basically quit playing tabletop role-playing games in 2006, shortly after I moved here to Ireland. I didn't know anybody in Ireland that played tabletop RPGs. I tried playing over like text chat kind of programs like Yahoo Messenger with some friends back in the United States right after I moved here, my gaming friends. We didn't have the great technology that we have now with Google Hangouts, and even Skype video wasn't all that great back then, I don't think, but it just wasn't working out. So we did a session or two, and unfortunately, I don't know, it was just hard. Couldn't keep interest going, and so we stopped playing. I also tried play by post, but I didn't like it. I found it too slow, and I didn't like the waiting for people to respond and things of that sort. So it just kind of ruined it for me. So yeah, so I quit tabletop role-playing games in 2006. And I only came back to them in 2014. So I guess I had about 8 years off. So yeah, I'll get a little bit more into that, we'll probably back into it in my next question, which is question number 5, or sure, it's not question number 5, but fact number 5. And this is kind of going to be multiple facts all rolled into one. I've just made this category, what I'm going to call Dungeons and Dragons facts, because Dungeons and Dragons has definitely been the most prolific system in my gaming career. My first role-playing experience was Dungeons and Dragons. It was AD&D, 1981, like I said. So that would have been, I guess what they call first edition now. It wasn't OD&D. It wasn't the BECME or whatever that's called. It was AD&D. I can still see the books, when I close my eyes, I think about it. But yeah, and I already told you how that worked out. My dad had been playing with his friends. I had been watching my dad and my mom play with their friends, and I really wanted to get in on it. So he let me pick a mini, and he ran a quick little encounter for me, and I got to kill a dragon, and I was addicted ever since. My longest run campaign was in AD&D second edition. I ran a campaign. I don't know how many years I ran that for, but it lasted for years. We built from this small little town. We built an entire kingdom around it, and it actually the small little town eventually became the capital city of the kingdom and everything. And yeah, there was a lot of different friends who came and went through that campaign, and some of them had multiple characters. In fact, some of them played generation characters where they were playing, offspring of their older characters and things like that. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool. I've never really found the patience, I don't think, to stick with a single campaign for that long since then. But that was the longest run campaign I ever had, second edition. I actually started to play third edition D&D, which had come out, I can't remember exactly yet. It came out 2000. And then it was around 2002-ish, I think, when I went to Gen Con I was third edition was my kind of thing at the time. I was still running that same second edition campaign. In fact, I had moved it over to third edition. I was playing, the generation characters then. But went to Gen Con and found all these different games and just kind of stopped playing Dungeons and Dragons for a little while there. My last couple of years of tabletop RPG was spent playing mostly like indie games and stuff. Games which probably nobody here has ever heard of. But yeah, and then I moved to Ireland and stopped playing anything really at all. So when I came back to it last year, my brother had been playing games with some friends, and I was just kind of feeling nostalgic. I thought, man, yeah, I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons, well, geez, in over 10 years at that stage. I hadn't played any role-playing games at all in 8 years. And I said, yeah, man, I'd really like to try and get in on something. So they were all about 3.5. That was the thing that they loved. So I got a hold of some 3.5 books, and I ran my first and only 3.5 campaign. 3.5, and this might shock some people because I know it's beloved by a lot of people in the Dungeons and Dragons community, but 3.5 is my least favorite edition of Dungeons and Dragons, at least of any of the editions I've played. I don't know, there's too much crap in it. It's just way too many books, way too many options, and I know you don't have to play it with them. You can just take your core books and say, okay, this is all I'm allowing. But because I was running for people who've been playing the system for, I don't know how long it had been out at that time, probably 10 years. And they had all these optional books and everything. They wanted to play all these different prestige classes and take all these different feat trees and everything else. And yeah, I had really good players and I had a really good time. And I ran a pretty interesting story, I think, for them. I enjoyed that. But the mechanics and just the amount of time trying to figure out how things worked and looking things up and everything else, I really hated it. And it was the last time that I ever ran and played 3.5, and probably never would again, but I'm just not interested in it. I never played 4th edition, and from everything everybody tells me, I'm sure if I did, then probably 3.5 wouldn't be my least favorite anymore. I don't know. I don't want to pass judgment on 4th edition because I never played it. I know most of my friends didn't like it, but, I never had the opportunity to play it. I'm not really interested now because I have 5th edition. So, and from what I have seen of 4th edition, it's not really very appealing to me because I'm a theater of the mind player. I never cared much for minis, and 4th edition seems to really focus on a lot of that stuff. And also from what I've seen, they just kind of, the characters got very generic and didn't have a lot of personality. I don't know. Never played it, but I don't think I ever really would. I actually discovered then, while I was running that 3.5 campaign, I discovered that there was a playtest going on for a new edition of Dungeons & Dragons, which fascinated me. So I was like, oh, wow, I'd never heard of a tabletop RPG playtest before. So I sought out the playtest, and actually the playtest was pretty much over, but I still managed to find copies of the playtest materials. I downloaded all of it, printed it all off. I have 2 giant binders upstairs full of it. And I started running that. So they called it D&D Next at the time. So I actually ran a series, kind of like a campaign, a series of games for D&D Next. I ran it for a gaming store back in my hometown in the United States that a friend of mine helped operate. So I ran a series of games over Skype video for this gaming store, and trying to drum up interest in the game before 5th edition was finally released. And then once 5th edition released, I bought the books. I pre-ordered everything that was available right off the bat, so which was 2 campaign books and 3 core books. Yeah, and I love it. 5th edition is my favorite edition now of Dungeons & Dragons. It suits me because it goes really fast. I don't have to, the biggest pain in the ass is maybe looking up a spell or something when somebody decides to cast something they never cast before and they haven't researched it properly and don't know what it does, or they tell me it does something that doesn't sound right. I have to look it up because I'm sure that they're either exaggerating or taking the piss a bit. But yeah, 5th edition is definitely my favorite. So I'm hooked on 5th edition. Although I have been playing a lot of different systems now than Dungeons & Dragons again. because I do like to explore things other than just the kind of fantasy setting. Yeah, so that's 5 facts about me. I don't know if you learned anything, but yeah. So now I guess I have to tag some people so they can tell us 5 facts about them. Hopefully they haven't been tagged already. So I'll tag Andrew Knapp, SR2 Joker. I'd like to hear some of his stories. Let's see, who else will I tag? Let's tag Matt McAdam. He runs the YouTube channel Zephyr's Gambit. Matt, I'd like to hear 5 RPG facts about you, if you don't mind. Thomas Stansfield at Something About Tabletop. If you would, please, tell us 5 RPG facts about you. And let's see, one more to round it off. How about Heath Wanamaker over, actually I don't know the name of his YouTube channel. Sorry about that, Heath. But yeah, I'd like to hear some of your stories. See if I can find his channel name real quick, just so that you can check him out. I feel embarrassed not remembering. He ran a Fate game that I've watched too, and I really enjoyed. But it is called, well, I can't find it, but it's something about Batman, because Heath fancies himself to be Bruce Wayne. It's called Bruce Wayne. There you go. Fancy that. Bruce Wayne, please give us 5 RPG facts about you. Well, I think I've rambled and sputtered enough now, so I hope everyone has a good gaming evening. Yeah, I got another great weekend of gaming coming up too, so stay tuned to Fantastic Dimensions, and I'll see you around.